G5's around the corner. There will be Bronies react until I'm dead. You'll be propping my corpse up with strings and making me be like, I like the Twilight sparkle.
I saw this episode 1 and 2 at about 1 in the morning after a very long D&D session, when I was not in a very good place in my life. And it really hit me hard. Hit me really hard. I loved it. I watched the first 6 episodes. It was 4 in the morning before I went to bed. The music, the background music, the acting, the characters, the story, it all hooked me. I was like, yeah, I'm watching this. I don't care where it goes. I'm watching it for a while. And it just got better. And it got better, and it got better, and it got better, and it got better.
The thing was, back in late 2011, I sat down and just watched the whole show in a chunk. Like, I'd watch, 3 or 4 episodes every night for a few weeks until I finally caught up with season 2. And I kind of just consumed it all at once. So I don't remember what my reaction to it would have been. I don't think I was one of the Bronies who was hesitant at the beginning. I saw it and I was like, oh, this is kind of cute. This is kind of fun and entertaining.
I remember watching it and just realizing it was refreshing. It was refreshing in the sense of the idea of you have all these characters and it was really pure and lighthearted. Like, that was the one thing I liked about it, especially because when I saw it, I was in a really bad place in my life.
These are things I didn't get to experience when I was a kid. The nostalgia trip. Watching something that I haven't seen in years and having it bring back not only memories, but feelings. That's a weird memory to have, to feel the way you did back in the day. And some of it's associated with the show, but most of it is just associated with probably the same synapses firing that fired when I was watching the show. And they trigger, other synapses that were firing at the same time to fire again. And I'm reminded of what my room looked like in Japan and where I was when I first watched it and what I was doing, my friends that, I was stationed with, what, foods I was eating, what my apartment smelled like. Like, it was a very different time and it feels like a dream, but it was me. I guess it was 2/3 me, because these 10 years that have made me who I am today had not yet happened. So I was a different person. It's interesting to think about. To have a memory and to know that you're different, but still the same in a lot of ways.
This was the second episode I ever saw of the show, was because you showed me Fall Weather Friends, and then I eventually said, well, I'm going to check out the season in order.
Yeah.
And yeah, there's, again, a lot of iconic moments in just this first episode, which you kind of need to get that clinch that obviously worked.
Launched a lot of people's careers, both people making the show and people watching the show, fans of the show.
Was a lot of effort put in. They just didn't have as big of a team as they ended up with. I mean, their budget was probably a lot smaller too. This was meant to be essentially a glorified commercial for Hasbro's new toy line. It ended up being this massive phenomenon that raked in way more money than they expected. And, they also, people started to analyze it and make stuff out of it. And I think, the people who were, it became the vision of a lot of people involved, not just Lauren Faust and, the few people she hired to oversee the project. Everybody in Vancouver, when I was there and I saw this, and working on, I got to work on the show a little bit, I saw this too. It was the big deal in Vancouver. Everybody knew about My Little Pony. Even when I voiced on Geronimo Stilton, people were talking about My Little Pony, and people were like, oh man, I want to be on that show. Everyone wanted to be on that show because those voice actors were going to conventions, and most voice actors never go to conventions. They do their show, they get their money, and then they go home, and that's it. They don't have fans, they don't get fan mail, and in a way, My Little Pony kind of changed all that. We really started focusing on voice actors and, and treating them like, movie stars.
The early show feels like it has a strange, naive charm to it. It somehow does two contradictory things at once. It sets up a bunch of lore and structure for the rest of the show, but then there's also lots of things mixed in there which don't make any sense at all. It feels like a lot of talented people worked really hard to make this, but they also weren't even sure if anybody was even going to see this, so they kind of just did whatever they wanted. One way or another, the first couple seasons have a unique charm I've not seen anywhere else, and I think it's the perfect foundation for a long-running show.
Involved, but it was very exciting, and everyone was really like thrilled to be in My Little Pony, and that had its positive effects and it had its negative effects. But it's very fascinating to kind of watch the arc of the fandom and the show, and how the show affected the fandom and the fandom affected the show, and how it kind of evolved and went through its paces, and kind of there, like with every fandom, became kind of a toxic part, and and then a part that remained, true to the morals of the show, and then a part that just, was people just enjoying it for what it was. And I feel like the majority of fans of anything are casual fans. But there was a massive influx of very dedicated fans to My Little Pony, and I think that's a testament to its excellence.
From 2005 to 2010, I checked out from cartoons because I was in college and I was also doing like video games like crazy and the internet. And then around I'd say 2011, I started getting back into cartoons again with like regular show, Adventure Time, My Little Pony. And then also the internet starting to kind of grow where it's not just obscure niche like websites. They started to go more mainstream with like Know Your Meme and Facebook becoming more popular, and just online culture picking up the pace as far as its impact and how quickly it was happening. And My Little Pony was a big part of that. And I remember being like, those memes, there were those inside jokes. I want to be the internet guy. I'm an internet guy. And that's what made me start to watch the show. And I'm so surprised to see where it took me.
Well, that was a good trip down memory road. It is funny to watch this again after so many seasons, 9 whole seasons, and you get to see a lot of what's changed. Well, oddly, one of the biggest things that stood out to me is Ashley Ball really practiced more and got more into the role of Applejack and Rainbow Dash. They sound very different in this two-parter, well, but it's the start of the series. You go back and you listen to early versions of characters, and they usually sound a bit different.
Most characters sounded the same, other than like Spike and Applejack, where their voices sort of got a little deeper as the show went on.
Another thing I love about this is just hearing the voice acting change, like, how like the characters have really become their own, like AJ especially. That is one I just am not used to.
For me, I felt like the voices were so interesting to hear how they were back in the day.
Yeah.
Because when you grow up with something, you almost forget. We watched through, again, 9 seasons of this.
Yeah.
I forgot how different, specifically Ashley Ball's kind of voices for AJ and Rainbow Dash kind of evolved.
I feel like Rainbow Dash mostly stayed around the same. It's Applejack that was really high pitched at the beginning. That was a good direction for her to kind of drop the voice I enjoy her deeper sort of tone in later seasons.
This is an introduction of the characters in general, but you don't really get to see how they are in everyday life or how they really contrast against one another until the Ticketmaster, which granted is the next episode. But this is more a grand introduction, not a complete character. Not yet.
Like listening back to all the voice actors, and you can hear like like I said, a lot of this was just the foundation for those iconic voices and like the characters themselves and like certain jokes and just certain things that I like will come into play in like later seasons. And it's just, I don't know, it's just mind-blowing that those 2 episodes literally started the ripple within everything else. I mean, hell, it wouldn't even, the Bronies React wouldn't even be a thing if it wasn't for those 2 episodes. Like, I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing. Like, it's kind of mind-blowing a little bit, like, knowing that, like, me 10 years ago watching that, and to now, like, it's, that's just mind-blowing in itself.
For having the amount of years between I've seen this episode to now, I'm actually surprised with how well the animation held up in this. I kind of figured it'd be a little more jarring for it being its first episode. A lot of first episodes or first seasons of shows tend to be that way. But this one, while there were moments where you can pick things out, it wasn't horrendous. It just, you come to really appreciate the animation in the later seasons, how smooth everything was after watching an episode like this.
The animation is much simpler.
The animation, not as fluid as I'm used to, but like that's what you expect when going back to watching season 1.
Poses that don't look very comfortable. Applejack's soups on call. Nightmare Moon at the quarter turn pose. Basically, there were some things that would be ironed out, but in particular, the backgrounds.
Look at those terrible vectors they're going. Like, it's like the terrible vector era of My Little Pony.
But it's amazing how much more detail and texturing they put in later seasons. So from slightly humbler beginnings, they refined their craft.
I think it's interesting to see how the animation evolved from this episode going forward, where things in the background looked a bit more static. The models weren't quite as comfortable in, I guess, their area, but then they got a lot more comfortable with the models doing very interesting things with them.
It's so weird going back to rewatch this after so many years, because it's just like, it's clearly different, like it's designed differently. Like it's very much designed, like later on, Bronies clearly had an effect on the show. Like that is not even a debate. Like they clearly had an effect on the show. Like watching it just as is, how it was originally intended, it still surprisingly holds up. The voice acting is, just like, it seems a bit more catered to kids in that way, the way they talk.
It's tricky because I'm kind of blinded by nostalgia, but at the same time, going back, there are little things here and there I pick up on that I either forgot about or didn't notice ever. There's always something new whenever I go back to rewatch these episodes. I've been actually watching these older episodes with friends pretty much ever since the show ended. So I've probably seen this premiere a couple months ago. It wasn't that long ago. And even now, today, looking at it again for this react, that I'm just seeing little things here and there that I didn't notice before. And I think the show is really good at doing that. Always having things in the background, having little character interactions and story plots and things going on.
Rarity goes, whoa, or Pinkie Pie goes, whoa. Like, they're used everywhere in everything, and it's so surreal.
One thing that I found a little surprising was just that whole Moon Dancer reference.
Yeah.
I didn't know that they dug that deep. I know that episode had its references to season 1, episode 1, but I didn't actually have any idea that she was literally name dropped in episode 1. Like, hey, Moon Dancer's having a party.
Yeah.
So yeah, I was kind of taken aback by that, just being like, whoa. Oh.
That's a good callback.
Yeah. I feel like this episode, it still holds up. I still quite enjoy it. It was a good show right from the beginning.
Nightmare Moon, especially compared to villains down the road, is actually a very tame enemy. She will not directly assault them, not until she's absolutely has to, not until it's the 11th hour. She will set dangers for them, but half of them are perils of nature or something to make them turn back. One of the things about a villain like her, this jealous, this selfish being, is that they need to put a spin on everything. If she wants to rule other ponies, she can't just say, okay, I'm in charge now. She also wants to undermine anything that could work against her. And the surest way to do that is not to kill and make martyrs of your enemies. Instead, she wants to be able to say, look at these poor fools. They engaged in a quest and were crushed in a landslide or devoured by this terrible beast. How could they be so foolish when I can offer them safety? She'll try to make everyone think she's the best and assume her line of thought. And she can only do that if she makes it look like they just made a terrible mistake resisting her. So that's why I think she doesn't just outright kill them on the first try. That, and it's a G-rated cartoon.
This is a very different vibe. For a couple of reasons. One, it's the first season, so the people making the show didn't know it would explode like it did. And two, so many scenes are completely recontextualized through, like, all the fan works that use that. There are so many scenes where it's like, oh, Rainbow Dash doing the woo whoop boop. That's in a million different My Little Pony fan things now. Just like that one is just whoop.
Very low stakes compared to the other ones that we had afterwards, but still a good first episode, good first impression from when I first watched it.
Over time, the horse aspect, snorting, whinnying, rearing up, and kicking legs, that drained away. Once upon a time, Lyra was unique for sitting like a human. Now everyone tries to do it. I do wish that they could have continued that trait.
So in this early episode, it seemed like they were talking more like little kids or little kids or something like that, or like, you know, but not to an extent where it was like talking down. Like, for instance, if you watch something like Dora the Explorer or Paw Patrol or something like that, it feels like you got this too. So I think that's really cool how they designed the show. Just be like, oh yeah, anyone can watch this from any age. And like, while it did seem like it was more tailored to kids in the very first seasons, later on it became like more encompassing to everyone just from the dialogue they wrote, this way they acted, the way the characters reacted. So I thought that was great.
I think there are some things that basically never changed. Like the music, basically, like the score, throughout the episode, like that has basically felt the same throughout the entire series. The individual songs have changed over time.
I also noticed that the background music feels a bit more generic in this first episode, in the first season in general compared to later seasons, but it does pick up. And then the first song, it feels basic now with like all the songs that we had afterwards. With Giggle at the Ghosties is like, oh yeah, it's still a good song, but like compared to stuff that we had later, it's not as advanced.
This series has come a long way. I mean, it's concluded now, but it ran for like a decade. And despite there being some interesting directions it would go in, I feel like the craft of making the show visually and audio, the voice acting, the music, it just improved as it went on.
With time, every show evolves, it changes. It's not the same. You couldn't have this kind of opening quest 9 times over. The friendships change, they introduce new characters, and while there are plenty of legit critiques, I've always been glad that this show evolved. I grew up in a time when shows didn't evolve, that basically it was the same good guy, bad guy for 65 episodes, and that's about it.
With Pinky, the idea that like you could giggle at things that were really scary or, you know, that were really screwed up, and overcoming those things with the, you know, power of friendship, it just, especially like for, you know, myself at that point, I was kind of isolated. I didn't really have that many people to talk to, and it was just, I found comfort in the show, and watching it again, there's still that nostalgia, the idea that it's comforting. That's what it is. It's like, it's kind of like when you go home and your mom, well, like to take a page out of Applejack, it's like, you know, going home and there's an apple pie. It's like, or, you know, your mother makes you a home cooked meal. It's almost like comfort food. You know,
it happened at just the right time. I don't know that it would have generated as big of a following had it happened 20 years earlier or even 20 years later. It was in the right place at the right time. It was just that magical combination that no one could really predict, and it became this very unique thing. And while I've had, my ups and downs, I'm very grateful to have been a part of it. And in a way it kind of changed my life, because here I am dating Claire. I probably wouldn't have met her if it weren't for this show, which is really weird to think about.
The entire series, for the most part, very good. Like the show staff ran with it, and they did great stuff. I mean, the finale for My Little Pony is one of the best finales I've ever seen for a cartoon, period. I mean that. No confirmation, a little bit of confirmation bias, but it's still extraordinarily good and very satisfying.
I really like this show. It's like my favorite show of the 2010s.
I'm glad we were able to look back at this It's fun to see, where the show was at in that very first run, how well established those characters were from the beginning.
When I became a man, I put away childish things, including the fear of childishness and the desire to be very grown up.
That's a sexy quote right
That's
there.
a great quote. C.S. Lewis is amazing, and I live by a lot of the things that he says.
This show was fun, entertaining, really identifiable characters, in my case especially Twilight and Fluttershy. Just really enjoyable to see, and I've always been impressed by the creativity inspired. This fan community does more art, music, dramatic readings, radio productions, or I should say audio productions, more energy than any other fandom I've ever witnessed. And I know that's up against some stiff competition like Trekkies, but to see all of that from a show this new, this fresh in our cultural awareness, that's something amazing. And I hope that will continue forward in G5. If not, then I'll always have G4 to enjoy.
Overall, just a very good first episode. I like it, and I wouldn't be here without it. I wouldn't have the friends I would have without it. So, yeah, good show.
It's both simple, it's both complicated, it's both restricted by its being a toy commercial, and it also has the freedom to be this totally new thing. It's minimal, but it's also very complex. It appeals to children, but it appeals to adults. I don't think any show has ever been able to be quite like this.
If I didn't watch My Little Pony, if I didn't get into this community, I wouldn't be doing YouTube for a job. So I owe My Little Pony, for some of the best friends of my life, for my relationship with my SO, for what I do for a career, and also helping me to grow up as a person, just to better know myself and who I am and what I'm about. I owe to pastel-colored ponies. Go figure. I guess life's kind of weird like that, I suppose, but I don't regret it for a second. I do regret Rainbow Dash. Just erase it from the show. Perfection. That's for you, Race. Pom pom.
Thought it was really a fun time. I love this show. I'm happy it gave me a springboard to do what I'm doing today, and love all the friends I made. So yeah, that was a great thing. I'm happy to rewatch this.
Thanks. I know this is silly, but thank you for letting me go down memory lane with this, because it was really nice to just revisit this. And like I said, I think now I'm gonna go rewatch the other seasons, because it's been such a hot minute since I've rewatched it, and there's so much love there, and I don't know, I like it. I miss it. I miss the earlier seasons. I think I need to go back and rewatch them.
Hey, AC. I really like this show.
Fluttershy's still the best.
Here's the thing.
So,
You're great. You're not perfect,
no.
but you're great.
Nobody's
And it's
perfect.
okay to not be perfect, because nobody's perfect.
And also stop pretending that you are.
And you don't have to be
At influencers
the
on
best
Instagram.
at blank, or to be worth something, to have value. So that's really what I would say.
Yeah.
You have value.
Well, I hope everybody enjoyed a Bronies React, a look back, season 1, episode 1, the very first for My Little Pony Generation 4. And this was fun. I think we got some stuff on the horizon to keep an eye out for. So,
Some more Bronies React throwback.
or maybe new content coming out. Oh no! Keep an eye on the channel. We'll see you next time. Bye bye.
I'm actually feeling intimidated with this one.
The Legend of Zelda Skyward Sword has yet to come out and disappoint everyone. Nope, I shouldn't have done that. I said to myself, don't do that, and I still did that.
Now I have no footage. What the fuck? Why am I having all the technical difficulties?
I guess it only took five?
This TV show will not leave your peripheral vision.
How am I supposed to do that's my job. I'm supposed to react. How the fuck do I react if I can't make it work?
Statue of Liberty outfit implies the existence of a My Little Pony universe Statue of Liberty.